I'm very excited for this talk. There's a lot of conversations about AI. A lot of them are theoretical. They're about the possibility of AI, which is very exciting. But I think getting to know Anne and what she's working on, I get really excited because you're actually working on real things that have practical applications in workflows. And I think that's very, it's nice to hear, things that actually you can go home and kind of implement. And so I'm really excited.
Me too.
So thanks for doing this.
Yeah.
So I know Jennifer gave you a bit of a background, but tell us first off about Ibotta and about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Anne Fundakowski. I have about 15 years of marketing experience. My background is pretty varied. I've been in project management and operations and digital marketing. And right now I work for Ibotta, which is the leading digital promotions provider for CPG brands. We have personalized cashback offers, and we reach about 200 million consumers nationwide through our app and our Ibotta Performance Network, so third-party affiliates.
Fantastic. And why you? Why are you here talking about AI?
So I lead our marketing operations and technology team, and what we're responsible for is developing technical solutions that enable our marketing team to deliver campaigns that grow our revenue and our consumer base. And one of the passions that I've had is AI, because I think it's a perfect blend of science and art, and I've always been drawn to finding kind of scrappy solutions, and AI really enables me to do that. And so I think that there's been this natural alignment with my interests and being able to apply that at my role at Ibotta.
Yeah, makes sense. So before we dive into the specifics, kind of set the stage, like talk about sort of AI at Ibotta kind of at a holistic level.
Yeah, well actually Ibotta has been doing AI for years and machine learning models to power personalization of our cashback offers in our app and in the Ibotta Performance Network. And so we're not new to that space. But what generative AI has really opened up recently for us is being able to use new technologies, third-party tools to incorporate that into our workflows. So while that is separate than the product and the personalization that we are offering for our clients, we're actually behind the scenes, the day-to-day functions that we need to do to operate our business can now be more automated with AI to drive greater efficiencies and also higher ROI for our campaigns.
So maybe kind of walk us through in marketing operations, when you embark on experimentation or you're building, tell us even how you figure out, I mean, do you even set targets or KPIs, or how do you even decide on goals for efficiency, or is it just kind of people are playing with tools and then what works ends up sticking? Give us a sense of how that works.
That's a great question. I would not say that we have goals to implement X number of AI tools a year just to have that goal, because implementing AI for the sake of implementation's sake isn't necessarily accomplishing our greater goal. But what we do have are goals to drive greater efficiencies, reduce our time to market, and do so without increasing the headcount. And so using AI is the vehicle that would allow us to achieve those goals. And so that's where we are still using AI, and we have goals that are tangentially related to AI, but not specific of, we need to go out and onboard 5 tools this year.
Got it, okay. Yeah. So, and you also mentioned a point that I think is probably commonly experienced, where we have to grow, we have to hit some type of business targets. We're not you don't have as much headcount as you'd like, you might not have any, you might have less than you did last year. And I think there's this promise that AI is going to help solve some of those gaps. Is that a bit of the case? Is that what you're kind of referencing?
Yep, that's the hope, that's the goal.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how does it work? Because even in my own experience, there'll be various teams and people kind of building agents and building effective prompts, and they're but it's kind of coming from all parts of the organization. Maybe it's solving all different kinds of problems. How do you begin to figure out how to prioritize that, or which tools or workflows actually get the attention that they deserve?
Yeah, I think it kind of relates back to this whole build versus buy question that's been around for ages, well before AI hit the market. And I think that it really depends on what the problem is that you're trying to solve at that time, and if it's a core competency of your business, or a strength of your business or something that you want to innovate on that is going to set you apart from your competitors in the market. But you make these decisions on these micro level goals. So it's not really a one size fits all of like, I'm always going to buy a new technology or I'm always going to say, let's go build it ourselves. It really depends on what that problem is. For example, one of the tools that we've recently onboarded is a background removal tool. And the reason for that is, could we have built that in-house? Probably, but it's not really our strength. What we do is we know offers. We do cashback personalized offers, and that's where we really want to invest our time and our energy. And therefore, we can use our third-party tools where their specialty is generative AI and background removal. So we can move much faster in optimizing our workflow by using third-party tools that way instead of dedicating time and resources internally to doing that. And so that's one of the tools that we have recently onboarded, was that background removal, because that's so important to the core function of our business, but not necessarily a differentiator of ours in the market.
Okay, so you are looking at sort of what's important for the business, but what's also a differentiator. You're going to kind of keep that in-house, so to speak, build intellectual property around that, and then potentially look for third-party tools for, okay. And so who's in that conversation with you? Is there CIOs, is there IT, is there legal? Like, who makes that decision? How does that practically work?
It depends on the problem that we're trying to solve. Sometimes we can, if it's small problems, repetitive tasks that we're trying to automate within marketing, it might just be marketing leaders that are making that decision. If it's a new technology that we're trying to onboard that's going to hit several cross-functional teams, we'll have leaders from our whole organization involved in that decision. Okay,
great. Okay, so you give us one example. Give us another example. What's something else here that you've done, and maybe share the sort of impact, the business impact of it?
Yeah. So the other one that we've been exploring is, and a thing that I'm a big believer in, is go look at what your current tech stack has in terms of embedded AI features, because your tech stack already has a lot of these capabilities that you're probably not tapping to their full potential yet. And all of these tech vendors that you're working with, they're iterating on those AI features every day. And so go ask them what the 2025 roadmap is and what they're planning on implementing this year that you might be able to leverage. And one of the things that we've done with that is exploring in our existing tech stack is, all of us marketers know we use a lot of marketing automation software and CRMs. And one of the tools that we've found is our marketing automation software has been able to bring AI directly into it, that has allowed us to create highly individualized marketing campaigns that would have, if we wanted to do it at the scale that we would need it, we'd have to increase our headcount significantly to operationalize that. And instead, what this embedded AI feature can do is it can segment out your audience, it can find the data analysis, it can then use generative AI to write content that's relevant to that individual person, imagery that's relevant to that individual person. It can do send time optimizations, and it can say, all right, we know Brian is most likely to engage with a push notification at 6 a.m., while Anne is more likely to engage with an email at 7 p.m., and it will send that campaign all within one setup of a campaign. And that kind of operational efficiency wouldn't have been achievable without a significant increase in headcount or without that AI.
I get the point. It wouldn't be possible without headcount or AI. Can I just test that a bit? You know, like, why would you not want to build that kind of intelligence in-house? So that vendor you're talking about could change a roadmap, sunset a feature, and you're now basing like is it like a marketing operation on that? Is that a consideration, or how would you think about that?
I think it's a blend. So we do our own personal machine learning models to kind of figure out the content to send to that consumer. But we could build all of those little individual capabilities ourselves, but it's just faster to go to market. And especially if it's already embedded in your tech stack and that technology already has access to our first party data and we can run our models through it, it's just faster to be able to test it and iterate. Now, it's not saying that we would never build it ourselves at some point, but right now what we want to do is test and be nimble and take advantage of the technologies that are coming out rapidly right now, and that's why I'd start there typically.
And when this example of this marketing automation software, did you need anyone technical in the organization to kind of like support that, or is that total business users actually from scratch?
Both. So when we set up the technology, we needed technology engineers, experts across the org to help us set it up, integrate it with the API. But then once we had that integrated, a lot of those capabilities can be done right through the UI itself. Yeah. So our business leaders, our business owners can do it themselves.
Super.
Yeah.
How do you motivate and engage your team to be constantly playing and like is that natural in Ibotta? Is that natural in your team, or do you feel like you have to kind of push people to experiment?
I do think that it's somewhat natural at Ibotta. We're all tinkerers by nature. Mm-hmm. But I think where we have started to see some real momentum is we went past that experimentation phase and we moved into the actual implementation phase. And I think the experimentation phase is incredibly important because you need to be hands-on with these tools to understand what they can do and what their limitations are. But then in order to move past that experimentation phase, you need to start looking at AI as a digital assistant to have a purpose. Mm-hmm. And say, okay, what are we going to solve with this? And sometimes the technology is not ready yet. And so we have experimented and we said, okay, there's a lot of cool ideas, but we're not there yet. And sometimes we've been able to find some low-hanging fruit. So actually how we kind of got started is we had conversations with our peers and team members within marketing specifically. And we started asking them to walk us through their day. What are some of the repetitive tasks that they have, some of the mundane tasks, some of the tasks that take much more time than we really want them to? And we found low-hanging fruit where we said, well, what if we could implement AI to do that? The background removal is one of them, where we actually implemented it and we went from spending 40 hours a week on removing backgrounds from images. Now, they're highly complex images that historically needed a human touch to remove the individual pixels. Well, AI has come such a long way now that we were able to say, instead of experimenting with it, let's actually implement it. And we were able to reduce 40 hours a week to only 2 hours a week. And when we did that, we were able to remove the creative team entirely from the workflow and reduce our SLAs, or our time to market, by one entire day, which helps us iterate more rapidly with just a simple implementation of something that we experimented with and said, hey, could it actually solve that purpose? Yeah. And I think that's where you start seeing that momentum. And when people are using it in their day-to-day and they're saying, wow, this is actually a lot easier to use and it's not taking any additional time, it's that undeniable value is hard to argue with.
Okay, so in that scenario, it was marketing ops. It was your team that kind of sat with the marketing team, asked about day-to-day activities and workflow, and looked for the low-hanging fruit.
Yes. Yep.
And then once they saw the results of the experimentation, it was obvious that this is something that we found. We
want to do more of this. Yes.
Got it. Okay. And so, I think it's really interesting because I hear a lot of customers, marketers, experimenting. Everyone's experimenting, but I don't hear often direct, scaled, successes in a lot of, and I think, for a lot of folks probably in this room, AI's been in the product for a while, right? And we've been consuming AI, but I think a lot of businesses are still kind of exploring. There's kind of a stage of chaos. So I really appreciate how you went into sort of your customer team, if you will, to kind of find it. What would you, say to folks who are maybe in the experimentation phases of how to find that breakthrough and how to find scale? Is there advice you could offer?
Yeah, there is. I would say something practical. If you wanted to say, what can I go do today? Go have the conversations with your team, find out what their pain points are. But the other thing I would do, and I kind of mentioned this already, is I would pick up the phone and call your vendors and ask them, what are they doing with AI and their tools that you have access to? Have them walk you through their roadmap and have them teach you what is available to you that you might not be tapping into. Because I think what you'll find is there is something that's fairly easy to implement that would maybe change the way you're doing your day-to-day work, and it might only take a couple of days or even shorter than that to implement it.
Yeah, okay, great. And how long have you been sort of at this? Has it been since we all first saw ChatGPT, or when did you get started in this?
ChatGPT, I think when generative AI really hit the market, my team came to me and said, what are we doing about this? How are we going to implement it? And so I went out there and tried to research everything there was to know about AI, and I would not recommend that. That is a dark tunnel that you can get lost in. But what I found is that this industry is changing so rapidly. So that was 18 months ago, and what AI looks like today is wildly different than it looked like 18 months ago, and it's going to look wildly different from 18 months from now.
And we're still talking about workflow kind of domain here.
Just a workflow domain.
What were the first workflows that were sort of automated or you found efficiency in?
I would say copywriting and content writing. I think a lot of people are using that one to experiment. A lot of internal communication, so putting your content in there and having it write an email for you to internal stakeholders, or having it review a business plan and giving you kind of the framework of how do I score this business plan. A lot of experimentation with ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. That way, I think that was the first thing that we started with. And then we use that for SEO, and now I'm interested in, can we use it to spin up web pages entirely? Not just write the code, but can we, through text inputs, create an entire web page and spin web pages up much quicker? That would help with our SEO ranking as well.
Awesome. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about sort of like what are the next sort of practical workflows? You're starting to allude to them, but give me, even 6 months out, the first half of 2025, do you even set expectations internally that we will be able to automate X or Y, or is it like that? Or how do you think about the kind of pipeline of AI workflows?
We have some initiatives already earmarked for this year and things that we are going to explore. And I expect that some of them will be probably failures of, okay, this didn't work for us yet, let's revisit it later when the technology has come a little bit further along. But I think that what I want to make sure that my team continues to do, and that I think they're already very excellent at, is keeping their ear to the ground to see what's coming and being nimble. So I don't want us to have just such a stagnant roadmap, or strict roadmap, I should say, that when new technology comes, we're not able to pivot and say, we're going to go after that one instead because there's a greater opportunity here. So we have some low-hanging fruit still because it just takes time to implement technology and create those efficiencies. But even though we have some of those low-hanging fruits and some larger initiatives we're exploring, I'm also just asking my team to say, be prepared for what might be coming. Agentic AI is one that I'm very excited about and that I'm trying to learn about, but I think there's just a lot more coming, and that's why I said it's going to look so much more different 18 months from now than it does right now.
And maybe last question or so, but how do you talk about this internally? I mean, are you updating an executive team on this is what the successes we've had and trying to get, budget and support for the future, or do you just have some autonomy to be experimenting and kind of tinkering around? Like, what's the communication expectation setting happening internally?
A little bit of both. Some of it is just us tinkering around and trying to implement something that might be really easy. But this year we are going to start looking at how do we create an ROI reporting cadence to say, like, how are we proving that this tool is continuing to provide value? And so that's something that I'm exploring and want to launch by the end of this year, is having a better ROI tool evaluation for this type of work.
And you don't do that already today with technologies?
We have some, but this I want to enhance it a little bit more.
And the pace of change seems to be so much faster that can have on a different cadence.
Yeah. What's some of the AI technologies that you're excited about implementing in your workflows?
Like you, I mean, we have a lot of AI already embedded in the products. And so, that's a whole different kind of domain. So I think creative is a big one. The ability to sort of, without any human labeling, understand what's happening in a video creative and parse out kind of elements of it to then say that's the best performing video across all these networks. That's super powerful. It just wasn't possible 18 months ago. And I think, in the world of fraud and fraud protection, the fraudsters got a hold of AI very, very fast. And so, I think staying that cat and mouse game is very important. But, we also, we gave all of our employees OpenAI enterprise licenses. And there's a real push to experiment and to kind of see this chaos and see what sort of organization comes out of it, which is why I'm interested in sort of learning from folks like you. So
I think you mentioned something that's really important too, is that you gave access to all of your employees to start experimenting. I think when it's only the job of a few individuals or one team to experiment with AI, yes, you're going to find some efficiencies, but it's not going to be as rapidly as it would be as if you tell everyone in your company to go explore, go use AI as your own personal AI assistant.
Yep.
Because then what happens is these repetitive tasks, although important, they take a lot of time out of each employee's day, such as writing recaps or agendas, sending out notes from a Zoom call. And if everyone in your company spends 40% of their day on that type of work, and now they can use AI as their digital assistant and now spend only 10% of their day, they're freed up to do bigger things that might need more of a human touch than something that a machine could do.
100%.
Yeah.
I think we're out of time.
Thank you for the
Lovely.
conversation.
I hope we learned a little bit about functional workflow AI. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thanks, Brian.
All right.